of Varanatho Anya, and I invite Soumya Datta. And I'll request Bindya, Pooja, and Bhubil to join us a little later after they finish. Amitabh ji, I'll request you to comment on, if the need be, on the first three presentations. And if there is time, you can stay back. You are most welcome. If you want to leave, you can leave. Meher will take over from there. Thank you so much. I hand over to you.
Welcome back to this session. As in, this is going to be a packed session, but a very, very exciting session. The speakers we have come with enormous experience and understanding of these issues. I just wanted to say first an apology that I'm coming very late and I'm going to leave early. But in fact, Paul, I, and a few others here, I can see Lisa, we were in a meeting at the moment before lunch, and we were trying to discuss why are many of us working on international questions. So this was a conversation about the BRICS Bank, but we were not able to really solve this mystery that why are some of us working on BRICS Bank and their conversation with the groups working on G8 is extremely limited. Then their conversation with people working on the climate negotiations is limited, and with SDGs and so on. Our feeling was, I'm pretty deeply now involved with that thought at the moment, that so far all of us have largely been responding to international negotiations as a response to what is happening. We have not been able to figure out a proactive agenda. I think that's one big worry. The second I wanted to flag is that we have also not been able to comprehensively look at the entirety of the spectrum. So particularly what is the Indian government doing in terms of its business in a land grab in Africa, and where is Exim Bank making its investment? We are not really seeing this in its entirety. So one of the thoughts that's come to us in that meeting was that how do we start, all of us collectively, looking at these questions, particularly questions of international negotiations, international processes, foreign relations, foreign policy, comprehensively, and have a clearer sense of what civil society's response should be. So the larger whole at the moment is missing, and from there I think we need to break it down. In that process, I thought the initiative is very, very interesting. We are at least attempting here, and that's why in fact Paul and I were discussing that actually is really apt. कैसे हम अंतर्राष्ट्रीय प्रक्रियाओं को का राष्ट्रीय स्वरूप दें, उसका राष्ट्रीय आर्टिकुलेशन क्या है। मुझे लगता है ये बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण है, और उसी सोच के साथ मैं रिक्वेस्ट करने वाला हूँ हमारे स्पीकर से कि वो अपनी बात रखें, पर हम लोग फिर आगे, मेरी गुजारिश आप सबसे ये है कि, और हम लोग वापस आपके पास आएंगे, कैसे अब हम मिलकर एक दूसरे कामों को और वो पिरोना बहुत जरूरी है, उसके बिना हम अपने अपने दायरों में काम करते हैं। तो मेरी तरफ से बस ये एक तो ओपनिंग कमेंट्स थे। मैं कविता से गुजारिश करूँगा।
I represent a network called ASHA, Alliance for Sustainable and Holistic Agriculture, which is a fairly new initiative that got started in 2010 after a countrywide bus tour that we took out called the Kisan Swaraj Yatra. And this is a amorphous, informal platform of more than 400 organizations looking at issues of food, farmers and freedom, as we like to describe it. In ASHA, we have evolved something called a Kisan Swaraj Niti, which is basically basically a four-pillared policy framework for enhancing farm livelihoods. And it centers around trying to bring in environmental sustainability into agriculture, number one. Number two, guaranteeing minimum living incomes in farming as the second pillar. A third pillar, this is not in any particular order, a third pillar of the Kisan Swaraj Niti is around control over natural resources and productive resources in the hands of farming communities. That includes land, water, seed, forests and so on. And the last bit is about nutritious, safe food for all Indians. This is the policy framework that we've been articulating and that we've been advocating for. I must confess that I've been completely out of the MDGs and SDGs circuit, if you like. I'm saying it with no value attached, just as a matter of fact. I've been drawn in by Ajay's persuasion into this meeting. And while I sit here and listen to what's happening, in terms of intergovernmental negotiations, role of civil society at the global level and so on, it seems like a completely different planet out there. What I'll share here is basically from my own personal years of work with women farmers in an organization called Deccan Development Society in Andhra Pradesh and now Telangana. And also, what Asha has been asking for. And what I'll flag here with regard to hunger, undernourishment, agriculture, farm livelihoods, women's empowerment, resilient systems in context of climate change, all these things are things which are pretty commonsensical. In fact, one doesn't have to have people like me walk in and flag these things, because the fact remains that the largest numbers of poor are in rural India, and they are also partaking in food production process, and they are also the largest numbers of hungry in the country. And it's so very obvious that the most direct way of dealing with several issues that one is flagging as development goals is to straight away tackle issues in agriculture. It's as simple as that. The largest number of people are involved, the largest number of women workers as they classify, though we know that there are workers and workers, are concentrated in agriculture. The largest number of farmers are smallholders. These are all things that one knows. But this direct intervention of doing something in agriculture, which will ensure that several of your development goals are most directly met, will not be addressed by the government, because the larger development dream that the government is pursuing, which is something that we have imported from elsewhere, is that our development should involve displacement of people from agriculture. They should be moved out of villages, they should be moved into other sectors. If that's the dream that you're pursuing, obviously you won't take commonsensical approaches. And I would say, like I said, what I'm going to say is very, very commonsensical. One, the food security approaches and frameworks and notions that we've always had in this country have an inbuilt false dichotomy that does not exist out there in the real world. The first dichotomy is that you think that producers are very, very different from consumers. And therefore you want to create a food security model where some producers are producing for some consumers out there. We have forgotten right from the initial times that the largest numbers of consumers are also food producers. So there's a dichotomy inbuilt into our PDS model, for instance, when we thought of a food security model centered around a public distribution system, that producers will produce for consumers, and there was a purpose back then. Once again, that purpose centers around moving people out of agriculture into other sectors, which is that of finding cheap labor for other sectors, especially the manufacturing sector, so that you have you have to provide for cheap food to find cheap labor. That was how that food security notion evolved right from the first 5-year plan. The second dichotomy is to think that, we'll have certain pockets of the country which will produce food for certain other pockets of the country. So, in the process of creating certain intensive agriculture pockets, we have decimated both those pockets which have gone in for the Green Revolution model and intensive agriculture paradigm, as well as all those neglected areas, mostly rain-fed farming, which have been neglected over the decades. We have managed to decimate farming and food systems in both these locations. Another dichotomy centers around thinking that food is only about 2 grains, essentially 2 grains. And to this day, when we talk about food security, even though we have a National Food Security Act which does talk about millets, the best of discourse that even civil society has not caught up with very many neglected aspects of food security which go beyond looking at even agriculture for food production. My recent research work in Odisha, for instance, with an organization called Living Farms, has opened my eyes to forests as food producing habitats. I have found that to this day, there are so many Adivasi communities who draw the largest diversity of foods from forests, which are completely free of cost, which are organic if you like, which are safe, which are highly nutritious, which even address gender equity questions, household level equity dynamics and so on, and extremely critical sorts of food. Either in the civil society, neither in the civil society nor, state discourse on food security is of course far away from even the best of civil society discourse. We have not even understood, we have not even begun looking at forests as food producing habitats. And if we start changing our approach to forests, for instance, we would really create a win-win situation between forests being conserved by the communities and the communities drawing a lot of benefits in terms of food and nutrition security from forests. So there's been a dichotomy in even our understanding of what should one be eating, in our thinking around food systems and so on. So going back to the MDGs, it is clear that the MDGs, continued with a paradigm which I would say even the Rome Food Summit in '96 was probably more progressive in its understanding and discourse than how the MDGs framed themselves around hunger. And if we want to track the progress, officially the government of India itself admits that we are off track. When it comes to undernourishment, it's not just off track. We have actually declining calorific intake in this country, and many of you are familiar with work of Utsa Patnaik and other people, which is showing that even in a very narrow definition of food security, we are way behind where we have officially said we were headed to. And in the SDGs, I must say that one should acknowledge progress to the extent that you have realized that agriculture and hunger have to be combined together and seen together. In the MDGs, you have combined poverty and hunger together. And we have a clear case in India where the official claim is that poverty has come down and official admission that hunger has gone up. So, it's a clear indication that your understanding of poverty has been wrong, your measuring of poverty has been wrong. Similarly, your track record with regard to undernourishment and so on is way off the mark. When it comes to SDGs, at least one is talking about agriculture and hunger and food security being connected. But it's nowhere near the green world that organizers of this meeting have in mind when you talk about food sovereignty. I think food security is an insipid term in itself. Unless we have terminology centered around right to food and defined in the way someone like Olivier de Schutter or someone has defined it. it has inbuilt sovereignty elements in it. It has elements of, people, individuals, communities and others deciding both their production modes and consumption modes. So I think food sovereignty is nowhere in the understanding at this point of time. And when we talk about the ideal way of constructing something around hunger, something around sustainable agriculture, there is of course going to be a big problem around defining sustainable agriculture itself. Today Monsanto is also defining sustainable agriculture for all of us. So there will be an issue around how you and I understand sustainable agriculture. If the definition of sustainable agriculture itself can have sovereignty elements woven in, then there is hope in there for us. And that necessarily means that we have to talk about control over resources, land especially in the hands of women, both de jure and de facto. I have been discovering in the recent past in visits to Telangana and Maharashtra again, what the women's movements and other progressive movements have been asking for in terms of land ownership for women for decades now. It's actually happening. In the past 5-6 years, there have been many villages where men are happily parting with their land, in the names of their spouses, but not for any empowerment reasons. Only if you show yourself as a smallholder, small and marginal farmers, in a place like Vidarbha, are you entitled to access a sprinkler scheme. So for opportunistic scheme-related reasons, there is land ownership that has moved fairly impressively in some pockets of this country into the hands of women. But it falls upon all of us to see how is it truly empowering. But land, both in terms of stopping land alienation, at the individual level as well as land alienation away from food producing lands, as well as the unfinished land reforms agenda that should be part of any goal setting around food sovereignty and hunger and sustainable agriculture. The most important thing is to not continue looking at agriculture as agriculture, because the system has a tendency of defining it only in terms of production and yield. We've got to take it into our livelihoods discourse. Sustainable agriculture alone will not do. We should talk about sustainable farm livelihoods, including livelihoods of the landless. What do we need to do in terms of giving them more assets and so on. There's of course the whole issue about technology, science and knowledge and practices that drive farming. So sustainable practices should be an inbuilt component of any food security, sustainable agriculture, hunger goal setting that we do. And there's the need to talk about smallholder women farmers leading the effort. Needless to say, when you have large farmers, sustainable agriculture is next to impossible to practice. You tend to bring in machines, you tend to go in for monocrops. That's the only way you can manage. So smallholders need ecological agriculture. Ecological agriculture can survive only with smallholders. There's a symbiotic relationship, and therefore it has to be centered around smallholder women farmers. And like I was mentioning earlier, it has to have an understanding built into it about forests as food producing habitats. These to me should be and there's of course the issue of markets. Like I said, in Asha we've been talking about minimum living incomes having to be guaranteed to all farm households. Part of that will require the government to actually bring down the cost of cultivation so that net incomes go up. You have to perforce move towards sustainable agriculture. But you also have to take up many reforms related to markets, which include international trade, but which also start addressing very many local problems also when it comes to food marketing by farmers. So addressing markets which are remunerative and farmer controlled is of course part of this whole thing. Those seem to be the elements in the content of what needs to be advocated for. But I also want to flag 2-3 other related issues, which is that we have a government which doesn't seem to believe in an entitlements framework. And we also have a government where, we've been formally told that the planning commission will be done away with. So in a sense, for advocacy groups which have always pitched themselves into planning processes that were led by them, there is a certain vacuum out there. So when we talk about nationalizing this debate, you may think it's premature to bring it up, and you would like this workshop to discuss only the content of things, but I do think it's an integral part of discussing, where do we go after we evolve the content of the goals at the national level and so on. The second point that I want to say is that for many of us, nationalizing is not enough. In fact, ideally we'd like the kind of radical democracy that Ashish is talking about with truly devolved powers up till the Gram Sabha level, but at least at the state level. Many of our battles have been successful when we pitch them at the state government level. And by Indian constitution also, that's a legitimate place. So we have to think about, how are we going to do this at the state level. And it also, this is my last point, it requires us certainly to reimagine scaling up and scaling out. The actualization of something like this will depend a lot on what Soumya Datta was earlier talking about, which is that some of these dreams to be realized require soft processes, which the state never seems to understand how to do. And this requires intense dialogues with the farming community and so on. And unless we can reimagine what scaling out on a large scale can be, not just scaling up, I don't think even partial achievements are possible. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Kavita. That was a note that we need to build on. And I think especially you were saying that it is not sufficient to nationalize, but also take it to the communities at the state level and hold these processes responsible. So like to congratulate Sequoia, Irony and other friends and the collective, sorry. Yeah, sorry, that's a problem. But I think it's, as Kavita was saying, it's not for Ajay's persuasion. It would have been very, very difficult, I think, to have had this opportunity. Thank you very much. I also would like to apologize for not having being with you the full day. And on that condition, I think Ajay, because I used to earlier critique some of these guys who just come for that half an hour and then go. And then later you realize that you are also doing the same thing. And thank Kavita for giving me 45 minutes to speak. Yeah. So I think this is really the issue. How do we subnationalize this framework which has come? I will not speak on what the goals and the details. I think Parvati will be sharing. But I also will not speak on the substance of what Dalit rights means, because I don't think here this is the issue. Though, given a chance, I will not stop talking about how discrimination is, how it has affected all. But the purpose, I think, here is to why a person who has involved in Dalit rights sees there is a necessity to involve in the whole dialogue on the post-2015, number one. Number two, so what if they have this post-2015 and we get everything that we want there in that? What happens? It is a useless piece of paper if people like us do not bring it down to the areas where we are involved at the community and subnational level. So I think I think Amitabh may disagree with me. Whatever has come. We may be able to impact a little more, have a little more, one or two more words included included. Samya may not agree because he's very passionate about certain aspects which need to be there, and the implications of it. Now I have lost. I mean, I'm not so interested in impacting what we need there, because we may get. I'm very disappointed, first of all, that the issue of caste has not sufficiently been lobbied by a person like me. I mean, I should have lobbied a little more. I'm also a little angry. My friends also have not sufficiently. But then I think all of us are angry that their own issues are not sufficiently lobbied for. So probably now the time has come for us to see. India is not going to reject this. It's going to come. These goals are going to come. So let me take the 8 or 10 minutes that has been allocated to see first what are the shifts between the Millennium Development Goals and the post 2050, and where I think people like us need to play a role in ensuring that it doesn't remain another archaic document there that has been passed. But what can we, why should we have this kind of an energy and spend so much money and our effort? Because we are still people who are very affected by and addressing issues of agriculture, of environment, of discrimination, of gender rights, of child rights. So why should we waste our time on this? I think these two, let me put. All said and done, I think it is a little better, not little better, much better than the Millennium Development Goals that have come. Millennium Development Goals, of course, has to a certain extent concretized the broader vision into saying, okay, if you're talking about poverty, what is the number? If you're talking about education, what is the aspect? If you're talking about gender, where in health you'll have to do, and then not just south and north-south kind of transfers. HIV, I think at the time was a very predominant thing. But what we have, I think, here is a very clear shift, not definitely towards a human rights perspective, but a broader rights have been brought in. Where it stopped short, I think, has made entitlements much more stronger. We would have liked, people like us, I think, would have liked to have seen a stronger language of entitlements. That is not there, but definitely much more than the Millennium Development Framework. If you look at all the 17 goals, end poverty, hunger, health, inclusive education, gender, very clearly, many of us thought that it not be there. Then sanitation, urban infrastructure, inequality within and among countries, it's a very interesting thing. Then making cities safe, secure, then the whole rule of law has come in. Access to justice has come in, not human rights, but access to justice has come in. Sustainable terrestrial ecosystem. So broadly, I think whatever many of us have been looking at has been brought into this. Lisa and others, I think, has made some impact being part of that high-level process and all that. I think that is a major shift that we have seen. From merely a developmental, technical, target-oriented to a broader perspective where the several shades of aspects of rights have been brought in. Stop short of being a human rights framework fully, because it doesn't talk about entitlements. Where I think is another difference is that they are still remaining, most of them, aspirational goals rather than mandatory goals. I think this is a problem which is still there. There is maybe Amitabh or Pooja and others may share, while the southern countries are wanting more the transfer of resources to the southern countries, more emphasis on the negative fallouts of climate change and others. The northern countries are insisting more on human rights, access to justice, gender justice, participation of civil society. It's a very strange kind of a dilemma where you would think it will be the concern in a different form. That's something I think we'll have to look at it. Therefore, what is it that people like us will have to look at? I think somewhere one concern which I've already shared, the discrimination based on